Muhammad Ali once called Hank Aaron the only man I idolize more than myself. Coming from the most recognizable boxer of all time, that's a pretty high honor. Welcome to a new series on my channel called Learn a Hall of Famer, where I will be going over every MLB Hall of Famer, giving you some stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. First up on the list, the late, the great Henry Louis Aaron, also known as Hank Aaron. Hammerin' Hank was born February 5th, 1934 in Mobile, Alabama. He had 7 siblings, one of which, Tommy, went on to play with the Braves alongside his brother Hank. Aaron came from humble beginnings. His parents didn't have the money to buy baseball equipment, so he would practice by hitting bottle caps with sticks in the streets. He also made his own baseball bats from materials he found around the neighborhood. He grew up idolizing fellow Southerner Jackie Robinson, and thanks to Robinson, Aaron was able to enter the MLB at the age of 20 years old. And as they say, the rest was history, but let's talk about it anyway. Hank Aaron played in the MLB from 1954 to 1976 for the Milwaukee and Atlanta Braves. He finished his career up back in Milwaukee, this time with the Brewers. Aaron hit for a career .305 average, scoring 2,174 runs, smacking 3,771 hits, and depositing 755 balls into many bleachers all throughout America. 143.1 WAR, .043 WAR per game, 155 career OPS plus, .403 WOBA, the all-time leader in RBIs, total bases, 21 straight years as an All-Star, and even an MVP in 57. And of course, that famed night, April 8th, 1974, Aaron sent Dodgers lefty Al Downing's 1-0 pitch into the left field bullpen for home run number 715, passing Babe Ruth for the all-time lead. 35 million Americans tuned in to watch that game. Hank Aaron was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1982, earning 97.8% of the vote on his first ballot. Sadly, he passed away January 22nd of 2021. That year, the Braves would go on to win the World Series. Thank you all for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time. Getting named after a president can be a tall order to live up to, but I think we can all agree that Grover Cleveland Alexander turned out just fine. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today we'll look at the first pitcher on our list, Grover Cleveland Alexander. Now, President Grover Cleveland was elected in 1884, and being born in 1887 to an avid Democrat father, Grover Cleveland Alexander's name was probably decided 3 years prior to his birth. But let's give Dad a break. It was the first Democratic presidential victory in over 28 years. Alright, enough about presidents, let's get to real American history, baseball. Grover Cleveland Alexander was born February 26, 1887 in Elba, Nebraska. Coincidentally enough, he also had 7 siblings, but none of his brothers played with him in the MLB like Hank Aaron's did. After graduating from St. Paul High School, Alexander was employed taking post holes for Howard County Telephone Company. He also played semi-pro ball for the Illinois-Missouri League and the New York State League. He was then sold from the New York State League to the Philadelphia Phillies for $750, which in today's standards equates to about $250,130. Now that we know where Old Pete came from, as he was so affectionately known, let's take a look at his resume. Grover Cleveland Alexander played in the MLB from 1911 to 1930 for the Phillies, Cubs, Cardinals, and finishing his career back in Philadelphia for his final year. He had a career record of 373 wins and 208 losses. His wins are tied for third all-time, a 2.56 ERA, 1.121 WHIP, and 2,198 strikeouts. A career 135 ERA plus, 2.82 FIP, 119.6 WAR, .207 WAR per 9 innings pitched. He was a 3-time Triple Crown winner. 6 times he led the NL in wins, 5 times he led the league in ERA, and 6 times he led the NL in strikeouts. Alexander was also a workhorse, as most of the mid to early 20th century pitchers were. He pitched 5,190 innings. He is one of only 13 pitchers to eclipse the 5,000 innings mark. He also completed 436 out of his 600 games started in his career. He also ended up with 90 shutouts, which is good for second all-time. But Alexander was really known for his control on the mound, as Hall of Fame second baseman Johnny Evers regrettably looks back on. He made me want to throw my bat away when I got to the plate. He fed me pitches I couldn't hit. If I let them go, they were strikes. He made you hit bad balls. He could throw into a tin can all day long. Grover Cleveland Alexander was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1938, winning 80.9% of the vote on his third ballot. He passed away November 4th, 1950 at the age of 63 at his hometown in St. Paul, Nebraska. Thank you guys for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball. You've been great, and I will see you next time. Now, this might sound crazy, but hear me out. Andy Bernard and Roberto Alomoar have a lot more in common than you might think. Now, let's think about that for a second. Both were living in their father's shadow, both of them had a brother that had their father's name, and both of them ended up being more successful than their brother. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some of their stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today, we'll be looking at the speedy second baseman, Roberto Alomar. Alomar was born February 5th, 1968 in Ponce, Puerto Rico. He, of course, is the son of Sandy Alomar Alomar Sr. and his brother is Sandy Alomar Jr. However, he was raised mostly by his mother due to his father being overseas playing baseball. But when school was out in the summers in Puerto Rico, Roberto and his brother would go to the States to hang out with his dad and his teammates, mostly to shag fly balls and of course to learn about the game of baseball. Alomar turned that formative experience into a great career that started in 1985 when he signed with the San Diego Padres as an amateur free agent. Alomar then made his major league debut 3 years later, April 22, 1988 against the Houston Astros. Now let's look at how Alomar's career turned out. Roberto Alomar played in the MLB from 1988 to 2004 for the Padres, Blue Jays, Orioles, where he made a legendary double play combo with Cal Ripken Jr., the Indians, Mets, White Sox, Diamondbacks, and one more year with the White Sox to end his career. He, like his father, was a switch hitter who fielded as a righty. He batted flat .300 for his career, scoring 1,508 runs, collecting 2,724 hits with 1,134 RBIs, swiping 474 bags and hitting 210 home runs, 67 WAR, .028 WAR per game, a 116 OPS plus for his career, a .376 advanced on base average, 12-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glove, 4-time Silver Slugger, and a 2-time World Series champ. According to Jaws, the sabermetric, not the movie, Alomar is the 14th ranked second baseman of all time. Alomar was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011, winning 90% of the vote in his second ballot. Unfortunately, due to some personal incidents in 2021, Alomar was banned from baseball. He still is the only player ever to be both banned in baseball and in the Hall of Fame simultaneously. As always, thank you guys so much for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time. Typically, when you're sent to boarding school in high school and then later kicked out of college after one semester, your career path isn't very lucrative. But luckily for Cap Anson, the MLB didn't have an extensive interview process. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some of their stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today we're looking at one of the first superstars in baseball history, Adrian Constantine Anson, also known as Cap Anson. Anson was born April 17, 1852 in Marshalltown, Iowa. In 1866, Anson was sent to a high school-age boarding school at the University of Notre Dame by his father, who hoped it would discipline his incorrigible child. However, the boarding school did little to help Anson's antics, so his father thought, hey, maybe college would be good for him. He was asked to leave after one semester due to bad behavior. While Anson may not have been a good school student, he was a master student of the game of baseball. He would practice diligently until he honed his skills, and at the age of 15, he made his hometown team. And at the age of just 19 years old, he would kick off his MLB best 27-year career. Cap Anson played in the MLB from 1871 to 1897 for the Rockford Forest Cities, the Philadelphia Athletics, and the Chicago White Sox/Colts, which is the team that would later become the Cubs for the majority of his career. He batted and threw right-handed. He played first base for the majority of his career with some catcher and third base mixed in. He bat .334 for his career average, scoring 1,999 runs with 3,435 hits and 2,075 RBIs. He had 94.3 WAR, .0374 WAR per game, 142 OPS plus, and a .394 advanced on base average. Anson was most well known for his leadership and longevity, playing the most MLB seasons ever at 27 seasons, tied with Nolan Ryan. And on his leadership, he won 5 pennants as a player-manager. He held that role for 21 years during his career. A fun stat fact about Anson, he hit 21 out of his 97 career home runs in one season, 1884. He must have been using the torpedo bat that year. Cap Anson passed away April 14, 1922 at the age of 69 in Chicago, Illinois, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1939 via the aptly named Old Timers Committee. Thank you all so much for coming to class. As always, I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time. Not many people have been a high school basketball state champion, released a single for a music label, and been elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame, but Dick Allen is a man of many talents. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some of their stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today we go a little bit back in the alphabetical order to look at the Wampum Walloper himself, Richard Anthony Allen, also known as Dick Allen. Allen was born March 8, 1942 in the small town of Wampum, Pennsylvania. He grew up in a large but divided family, with his parents being divorced when he was younger and also having 9 siblings. 2 of his siblings, Hank and Ron, along with Dick, went on to become high school basketball champions in the state of Pennsylvania. However, the 3 of them decided to focus more on baseball as it was the better sport for money, and they wanted to buy their mother, who raised them, a new house. And focus on baseball they did, as all 3 of them would go on to play in the MLB. Now, Hank only had 2 seasons with over 100 games played, and Ron went yard once and called it a career. But Crash, one of Richard's nicknames, ended his career with eventually successful Cooperstown aspirations. He was signed right after high school graduation for an estimated $70,000. The first thing he did, Buy his mother that new house. Dick Allen played in the MLB from 1963 to 1977 for the Phillies, Cardinals, Dodgers, White Sox, back with the Phillies for 2 years before ending his career with 1 year with the Oakland A's. He batted and threw right-handed. He started his career at third base for a few seasons with a quick stint in left field before finding a home at first base for the rest of his career. He bat .292 for his career average, scoring 1,099 runs with 1,848 hits and 1,119 RBIs. He also smacked 351 home runs in his career, 58.7 WAR, .0335 WAR per game, 156 OPS plus, and a .413 advanced on-base average. Allen was most known for his power at the plate, as well as being a pioneer for integration in the sport, as he was the first black player the Little Rock affiliate for the Phillies ever had. But as mentioned in the intro, baseball wasn't Allen's only talent. He was quite the singer as well. People in today's age, we have Justin Tucker, Manny Pacquiao, but the Philadelphia area in the late 1960s, they had Dick Allen. He and his group, Rich Allen and the Ebonistics, even performed for a Philadelphia 76ers halftime show in 1969. Allen passed away December 7, 2020, at the age of 78 in his hometown of Wampum, Pennsylvania. He was elected into the Hall of Fame this year in 2025 via the Classic Baseball Era Committee, receiving 81.3% of the vote. As always, thank you so much for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time. The average MLB player stands at about 6'2" and weighs in at about 209 pounds. The typical horse jockey stands at about 5'2" to 5'6" and weighs in at about 108 to 119 pounds. But being closer to the typical horse jockey rather than the average MLB player did not stop Luis Aparicio from becoming an MLB Hall of Famer and one of the most prolific defenders in baseball history. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some of their stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today we're looking at the man with the 6th most defensive WAR of all time, Luis Aparicio. Aparicio was born April 29, 1934 in Maracaibo, Venezuela. His father, who was a prominent shortstop in Venezuela, and his uncle actually co-owned a Winter League team, which no doubt gave Luis great baseball experience in his youth. In that same year, he would sign with the local professional team in Maracaibo, Venezuela, along with his father, and just 3 years later, his MLB career would begin. Luis Aparicio played in the MLB from 1956 to 1973 for the White Sox, Orioles, and 2 final years with the White Sox. He batted and threw right-handed. He played shortstop his whole career. He bat .262 for his career average, scoring 1,335 runs with 2,677 hits, driving in 791 RBIs and swiping 506 bags. 55.8 WAR, .0214 WAR per game, 82 OPS plus, and a .321 advanced on-base average while winning Rookie of the Year. Now those numbers don't exactly jump off the page, but that's because Aparicio is most well known for his defense, accumulating a whopping 31.8 defensive WAR. That's good for 6th all time. He's ahead of players like Ivan Rodriguez, Yadier Molina, Adrian Beltre in defensive WAR. Some more defensive stats about Aparicio: he turned 1,553 double plays, led the league in fielding percentage 8 times, and he is one of only 2 shortstops to have over 8,000 assists. I bet you can't guess who the other one is. Aparicio was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1984, winning 84.6% of the vote on his 6th ballot. He's the first ever native-born Venezuelan to be elected into the Hall. And after the death of Willie Mays, Aparicio is now the oldest living Hall of Famer at 91 years old. As always, thank you guys so much for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time. For someone whose nickname was Old Aches and Pains, Luke Appling was quite a durable shortstop, playing more than 100 games in all but 4 seasons. They just don't make them like they used to anymore. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some of their stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today we're looking at the greatest White Sox player of all time, Luke Appling. Appling was born April 2nd, 1907 in High Point, North Carolina, and all the way up until high school, Appling played the game as a lefty until he decided he wanted to play shortstop. And then he just switched hands like it was nothing. And after his days at Oglethorpe College in Atlanta, Appling signed with the Atlanta Crackers of the Southern League in 1930. The Chicago Cubs showed some interest at first, but then backed off. But the Chicago White Sox saw their future all-time leader in WAR and purchased Appling from the Crackers for $20,000. Luke Appling played in the MLB from 1930 to 1950 for the White Sox for his entire career. He batted and threw right-handed. He played shortstop his whole career with some other infield versatility at times. He bat .310 for his career average, scoring 1,319 runs with 2,749 hits, driving in 1,116 RBIs while walking almost 3 times as much as he struck out, which got him a career .399 on-base percentage. 77.2 WAR, .0319 WAR per game, 113 OPS plus, and a .377 advanced on-base average while winning 2 batting titles. Luke Appling was about as gritty as they come, with a career full of nagging injuries that he played through, serving in World War II, and being most well known for spoiling away any pitch that wasn't his. A quote from Arthur Daly of the New York Times about Appling's hitting ability says, "Few were better or more deadly with 2 strikes than Appling. He just waited for the pitch he wanted and lashed into it. If there was a good pitch he didn't want, he artistically spoiled it by fouling it off. Luke Appling was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1964, winning 94% of the vote on his 7th ballot. Appling passed away January 3rd, 1991 at the age of 83 in Cumming, Georgia. As always, thank you guys so much for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time. Having his number retired, making his team's Wall of Fame and his city's Sports Hall of Fame while being inducted into the MLB Hall of Fame was definitely worth the nearly 50 years Richie Ashburn spent on the Philadelphia sports scene. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some of their stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today we're looking at one of Philadelphia's most iconic sports legends, Richie Ashburn. Ashburn was born March 19, 1927 in Tilden, Nebraska. His mother gave birth only twice, but had 4 children, having sets of twins both times. Ashburn began playing baseball at the age of 8 as a catcher, but when he was 17, playing in an all-star game for a local league, legendary manager Connie Mack advised Ashburn to play a position that was more up to his speed. Literally. At 16, he signed with the Cleveland Indians, but that contract was voided due to him being in high school. The next year, he signed a contract with the Cubs to play for their Nashville farm team, but was once again nullified due to an illegal clause in his contract. But the third time was the charm as he signed with the Phillies, and that following year, he reported to his first professional team. Richie Ashburn played in the MLB from 1948 to 1962 for the Phillies, Cubs, and Mets. He batted lefty and threw righty. He played center field most of his career with some left field mixed in. He bat .308 for his career average, scoring 1,322 runs with 2,574 hits, driving in 586 RBIs and 1,198 walks. 64.3 WAR, .0293 WAR per game, 111 OPS plus, and a .366 advanced on-base average while also winning 2 batting titles. Despite only stealing 234 bases, Ashburn was most well known for his speed in the field and his defense, racking up the 3rd most putouts by a center fielder in history. But Ashburn wasn't quite done with baseball after he retired. In 1963, the year after he retired, he became the color commentary for the Phillies until 1997. Ashburn was elected in the Hall of Fame in 1995 via the Veterans Committee. He was also elected into the inaugural Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame class in 2004, as well as the Phillies Wall of Fame in 1979. Ashburn passed away September 9th, 1997 at the age of 70 in New York City. As always, thank you guys so much for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time. Of all the great position players in MLB history, only one player, Jackie Robinson, debuted at a later age than Earl Averill and made it into the Hall of Fame. Welcome back to Learn a Hall of Famer, a series where I go over every MLB Hall of Famer in alphabetical order, giving you some of their stats and some history so we can all learn more about the greats of baseball. Today we finished up the letter A with the Earl of Snohomish, Earl Averill. Averill was born May 21, 1902 in Snohomish, Washington. Not much is known about his childhood other than Averill probably played on a field that was cleared out of stumps and stones by local townspeople. At the age of 15, Averill actually gave up baseball due to a condition called dead arm where he was unable to make throws from the outfield. 3 years later in 1920, Averill joined the Snohomish local team and performed so well that the locals paid for him to go to the Pacific League Seattle Indians camp in San Bernardino, California in 1924. Unfortunately, he was told he didn't have what it took to be a Pacific League player. His fortune would turn around, however, in 1926 when, after tearing it up for the local leagues, Averill was invited to play for the San Francisco Seals of the Pacific League, where he also tore it up, driving in 173 runs in the 1928 season. And after that year, his major league career would begin at the age of 26 years and 330 days. Earl Averill played in the MLB from 1921 to 1941 for the Indians, Tigers, and Braves. He batted lefty and threw righty. He played center field for most of his career with some left and right field. He bat .318 for his career average, scoring 1,224 runs with 2,019 hits, driving in 1,164 RBIs with a .928 OPS, 51.6 WAR, .0309 WAR per game, 133 OPS plus, and a .415 advanced on-base average. Averill was most well known for his natural talent and outstanding hit ability, as he said, quote, "Nobody ever taught me much of anything. You were on your own when it came to the fundamentals." Averill was also elected to the first ever MLB All-Star game in 1933. He was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1975 via the Veterans Committee. Averill passed away August 16, 1983 at the age of 81 in Everett, Washington. As always, thank you guys so much for coming to class. I've been Professor Baseball, you've been great, and I will see you next time.